AITA for refusing to contribute to my sister's wedding after my parents spent my entire college fund on MLMs? I, 25F, am at my wit's end and could use some outside perspective. Growing up, my parents always emphasized the importance of education. They started a college fund for me when I was born, adding to it consistently over the years. They'd often mention how it had grown to over $50,000 by the time I was in high school. I was beyond grateful, knowing this would give me a huge leg up in starting my adult life. Fast forward to my senior year of high school. I noticed my mom getting really into some new business opportunity she'd found online. She was constantly on her phone, posting about these amazing weight loss shakes and how they'd changed her life. Red flags started popping up when she began pressuring family and friends to buy products or join her team. I didn't think much of it at first. Mom had always been impulsive and prone to fads. But then I overheard her and Dad arguing about money. Apparently, she'd maxed out their credit cards buying inventory. Dad was furious, but Mom insisted she was about to hit some big bonus that would make it all worth it. As my high school graduation approached, I started asking about the logistics of accessing my college fund. My parents got weirdly evasive, making excuses about why we needed to wait. Finally, a week before I was set to leave for college, they sat me down for the talk. With tears in their eyes, they confessed that my college fund was gone. Every last penny had been poured into Mom's MLM business over the past year. They'd convinced themselves it was a temporary loan, that they'd be able to replace it, and then some, once Mom reached the next level in her company. I was blindsided. Furious. Devastated. All those years of saving, all those missed family vacations so they could contribute more to my future, gone in a flash of magical thinking and predatory marketing. They begged for forgiveness, swearing they'd make it right somehow. But the damage was done. I had to scramble to piece together loans and a patchwork of scholarships at the last minute. I worked multiple jobs throughout college, barely sleeping as I tried to keep my grades up while staying afloat financially. I graduated with nearly $100,000 in student loan debt. The weight of it is crushing. I'm living paycheck to paycheck in a tiny studio apartment, watching half my income disappear to loan payments each month. Meanwhile, my parents are still chasing MLM pipe dreams, having cycled through at least 3 more companies since the one that ate my college fund. Now, here's where things get even more complicated. My younger sister, 22F, just got engaged. She's always been the golden child, prettier, more popular, better at sports. Don't get me wrong, I love her to pieces. But there's always been an undercurrent of favoritism from our parents. Last week, my mom called me out of the blue, gushing about wedding plans. Apparently, my sister has her heart set on this fairytale vineyard wedding. Mom went on and on about how perfect it would be, how it's exactly what she'd always dreamed of for her baby girl. Then came the kicker. Mom oh so casually mentioned that they were a bit short on funds for the deposit. Would I be willing to chip in $15,000 to make my sister's dreams come true? After all, family helps family, right? I nearly choked. $15,000? I can barely afford ramen most weeks. When I pointed this out, Mom got huffy. She said I was being selfish, that I should be happy for my sister. Then she hit below the belt, it's not like you're saving for a wedding anytime soon. You can't even keep a boyfriend with how much you work. I lost it. Years of pent-up resentment came pouring out. I told her exactly what I thought of their financial choices, how they'd ruined my future, and how dare they have the audacity to ask me for money after everything they'd done. Mom burst into tears, saying I was cruel and ungrateful. She ranted about how hard they'd tried, how they'd always done their best for us. She said if I really loved my sister, I'd find a way to make it work. I hung up and immediately got bombarded with texts from my sister and Dad. They're both furious with me for upsetting Mom. My sister says I'm trying to ruin her special day out of jealousy. Dad says I need to grow up and let go of the past. Am I crazy here? Am I really the asshole for refusing to bankroll my sister's wedding when I'm drowning in debt because of my parents' poor choices? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Please, give me some outside perspective. Am I being unreasonable? Edit, holy crap, this blew up overnight. Thank you all so much for the support and advice. I'm overwhelmed by the responses and will try to address some common questions/comments. 1. Yes, my sister knows about the college fund situation. She was 16 when it all went down. At the time, she seemed sympathetic, but she's since adopted my parents' attitude of it's in the past, let it go. 2. No, my parents never faced any real consequences for what they did. They filed for bankruptcy about 2 years after I left for college, wiping out a lot of the MLM debt. They're still terrible with money but always seem to land on their feet somehow. 3. My relationship with my sister has always been complicated. We were close as kids, but drifted apart in our teens. The college fund fiasco definitely put a strain on things. She's never really acknowledged how it's impacted my life long term. 4. To those asking why I'm still in contact with my family, it's messy. I've gone low contact, but cutting them off completely is harder than it sounds. There's a lot of guilt and cultural expectations at play. 5. For those suggesting I take legal action, I've looked into it. Unfortunately, since the account was in their names and I was a minor when the money was spent, there's not much I can do legally. 6. Thank you for all the kind offers of help and support. I'm not comfortable accepting money from strangers, but I appreciate the sentiment more than I can express. I'm still processing all of this, but I'm leaning towards sending a group text to my parents and sister. I'll lay out exactly why I won't be contributing to the wedding, along with firm boundaries moving forward. I'm also going to look into therapy options to help me work through some of this baggage. Thank you all again. I'll update if there are any major developments. Edit 2. Well, things escalated quickly. I sent the group text as planned, calmly explaining my position and setting boundaries. The responses were not great. My sister replied first, accusing me of being dramatic and trying to make her wedding all about me. She said I was using my money problems as an excuse to punish her for our parents' mistakes. She ended by saying if I couldn't be happy for her, I shouldn't bother coming to the wedding at all. My mom's response was a wall of text full of guilt trips and gaslighting. She rehashed every sacrifice they'd ever made for us, conveniently glossing over the college fund disaster. She said I was being ungrateful and that real family supports each other no matter what. She implied that my attitude was the reason I was struggling in life, not their actions. Dad's response surprised me the most. He actually acknowledged that they'd messed up with the college fund. But then he pivoted to saying that dwelling on the past wasn't helping anyone. He urged me to be the bigger person and find a way to contribute to the wedding, even if it wasn't the full amount. He said this could be a chance to heal our family rifts. I was shaking by the time I finished reading everything. I turned off my phone and spent the rest of the day ugly crying and stress cleaning my apartment. When I finally checked my messages again, I had dozens of missed calls and texts from extended family. Apparently, my parents and sister have been spreading their version of events. I've been called selfish, ungrateful, and a drama queen by various aunts and uncles. My grandma left a tearful voicemail begging me to reconcile with my parents before it's too late. Even my cousins are blowing up my social media, telling me I'm tearing the family apart. The only bright spot in all this has been my best friend. She came over with ice cream and wine, let me vent for hours, and then helped me draft responses to everyone. We decided on a firm but polite message reiterating my position and requesting space. I've blocked my immediate family's numbers for now and set my social media to private. I'm emotionally exhausted but also feeling weirdly free? Like a weight has been lifted by finally standing my ground. I have my first therapy appointment scheduled for next week. I'm nervous but hopeful that it will help me process all of this and build healthier boundaries going forward. Thank you again to everyone who offered support and advice. It truly means the world to know I'm not alone in this. Edit 3. It's been about a month since my last update, and a lot has happened. Buckle up for one last wild ride. First, the good news: therapy has been incredibly helpful. It's given me tools to process my emotions and set healthier boundaries. I've also started a support group for other people impacted by family financial abuse. It's been healing to connect with others who understand. Now for the drama. 2 weeks ago, I got a cease and desist letter from a lawyer claiming to represent my parents and sister. They accused me of defamation, saying my Reddit post had caused them emotional distress and reputational damage. They demanded I delete the post and issue a public apology, or else they'd pursue legal action. I panicked at first, but then I reached out to a lawyer friend for advice. She looked over the letter and basically laughed it off. Turns out, truth is an absolute defense against defamation. She helped me draft a response that essentially told them to pound sand. Here's where it gets even crazier. 3 days after I sent that response, my mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. She was an absolute mess, mascara streaked, reeking of wine. She oscillated between sobbing apologies and angry accusations. The gist of her ramblings: Dad had finally put his foot down about the MLM stuff. He'd given her an ultimatum: quit the MLMs or he'd file for divorce. This had led to a huge blowout fight where a lot of ugly truths came out. Apparently, the lawyer who sent the cease and desist was actually just a friend of my sister's boyfriend who's in law school. The whole thing was an attempt to scare me into silence because my Reddit post had made its way through our extended family and social circle. Several people had started asking uncomfortable questions about my parents' financial decisions. My sister's elaborate vineyard wedding? Mostly a fantasy. They'd put down a small deposit to hold the date, but there was no way they could actually afford it without significant help. My sister had been counting on guilting me into contributing, assuming I'd give in to keep the peace like I always had in the past. Mom admitted that she and Dad had been living on credit cards for years, juggling balance transfers and always chasing the next big break that would solve all their problems. She'd hoped that a lavish wedding for my sister would somehow fix everything, prove to the world, and themselves, that they were still successful. I let her cry herself out on my couch, but I held firm. I told her that while I was glad she was finally being honest, it didn't undo years of hurt and financial abuse. I said I'd consider being part of their lives again, but only after seeing real, consistent change, including therapy and financial counseling for both of them. Mom left looking shell-shocked but nodded when I said I'd reach out once I'd processed everything. True to my word, I've spent the last week thinking long and hard about what I want my relationship with my family to look like moving forward. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm also protecting myself. I've frozen my credit and set up fraud alerts, just in case. I'm working with my therapist on strategies for maintaining boundaries while leaving the door open for possible reconciliation down the line. As for my sister's wedding? Last I heard, they've postponed it indefinitely. Part of me feels guilty, but a bigger part feels relieved. I'm finally putting my own mental health and financial stability first. Edit 4. Wow, it's been a while since my last update. So much has happened, and I'm still processing it all. But I promise to keep you all in the loop, so here goes. It's been about 6 months since the big blow up with my family. In that time, I've gone through a roller coaster of emotions and experiences. Here's where things stand now. 1. My parents. After my mom's drunken confession, my dad reached out via email. He admitted they'd hit rock bottom and were finally ready to get help. They've been attending financial counseling and individual therapy. It's early days, but they seem to be making genuine efforts to turn things around. They've sold their house and downsized to a small apartment to cut costs. Dad took on a second job, and Mom's working part-time at a local library, her first real job in years. They're on a strict budget and slowly chipping away at their debt. We've had a few careful, supervised meetings with my therapist present. It's awkward and emotional, but we're slowly rebuilding trust. They've apologized numerous times for the college fund situation and have promised to make amends, though we all know it'll take years. 2. My sister. This has been the most surprising development. After the wedding was postponed, she apparently did some serious soul-searching. She reached out about a month ago with a heartfelt apology. We met for coffee, and she broke down crying. She admitted she'd been in denial about our parents' financial issues and had convinced herself that the lavish wedding would somehow fix everything. She also confessed to feeling intense guilt over how I'd been treated compared to her. We're cautiously rebuilding our relationship. She's ditched the expensive wedding plans and is now talking about a small backyard ceremony next spring. She even asked if I'd consider being her maid of honor. I'm still deciding, but the fact that she asked means a lot. 3. Extended family. Once the truth came out about my parents' financial situation, most of the flying monkeys backed off. A few stubborn ones still insist I should forgive and forget, but I've gotten better at shutting that down. My grandma, who initially guilt-tripped me, has become one of my biggest supporters. She was horrified when she learned the full story and has been a rock throughout this whole process. 4. My personal life. The past 6 months haven't been easy, but they've been transformative. I've continued therapy and joined a support group for adult children of financially irresponsible parents. It's been incredibly healing to connect with others who understand. I got a promotion at work and used the raise to start aggressively paying down my student loans. I've also started a small side gig doing freelance graphic design. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm making progress instead of just treading water. And here's a plot twist I didn't see coming. I've started dating my lawyer friend who helped me with the cease and desist nonsense. It's new and we're taking it slow, but it's nice to be with someone who understands boundaries and financial responsibility. 5. The future. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future of my family relationships. We're not fully healed, not by a long shot, but we're on a better path. I'm maintaining firm boundaries while leaving room for continued growth and reconciliation. My parents have committed to paying back my college fund, though we all know it'll take years. They're making small monthly contributions as part of their amends process. I'm putting this money into a separate savings account, earmarked for my future goals. As for me, I'm focusing on building the life I want. I'm saving for a down payment on a small condo and have started taking classes toward an MBA. I'm even toying with the idea of writing a book about financial literacy and breaking toxic family patterns. Looking back at my original post, it's hard to believe how much has changed. There have been moments of deep pain and frustration, but also incredible growth. I've learned so much about setting boundaries, advocating for myself, and the true meaning of family. To everyone who supported me throughout this journey, thank you. Your advice, kind words, and shared experiences have been a lifeline. To those still struggling with similar situations, hang in there. It gets better. You're stronger than you know. I'm not sure if I'll post any more updates after this. Part of moving forward means focusing on living my life rather than constantly rehashing the past. But I wanted to give you all some closure and let you know that your support made a real difference.